You're listening to the Food Truck Empire podcast, where we talk about great food, big trucks, and how to launch a profitable food truck business. Here's your host.
Oh yeah, Food Truck Empire podcast. It's Friday morning and it's episode 21. And this is a sad day on the podcast because I tell you what, I think this is possibly one of the last times you'll ever be able to hear my co-partner in the show, Bertha, who always does the introductions on the show. I'm thinking about replacing Bertha with someone else, or I don't know. I'm open to different ideas, but let me know if you want to save Bertha. Shoot me a Twitter message or whatever if you're a regular listener on the show and you really enjoy her, you want to keep her around. Or if you'd like me to switch it up a little bit like I'm thinking about doing, and maybe even just doing the little intro part myself. But anyways, thank you for listening this week. This week we've got Scott Ross with us, who's going to be providing some tips for getting the right mobile food unit created for you, and along with sharing different advice for preparing to have your food truck built. Now, Scott Ross and his company, Ross RV and Food Carts, have built over 70 food trucks this year, so they definitely know what they're talking about, and I'm excited to have them on the show. Before we get into our featured presentation, though, I just want to give a shout out to Carolina from Yoli Street Food, operating out of Atlanta. She's going to be closing down for the winter and moving to Florida shortly, and she's also bringing Yoli's with her, so if you happen to be a listener in Florida, definitely be on the lookout for her. She is also a subscriber to the email list, and as you know, I like to have conversations with folks that are listening to this show and get their feedback and ideas for new content ideas. So I definitely appreciate the time that she took, and I linked up to her Facebook page within the show notes at foodtruckempire.com. And one other news item that I thought would be interesting to you guys that I happened to see on Twitter this week, and this is brought to you by foodstart.com, where you can get $1,000 just for being a listener of the Food Truck Empire podcast when you're trying to fund your next food truck or food cart. Check out the Fund Your Truck page on foodtruckempire.com for more information and details about that. Now, last week, as you know, I spoke with Michael Swale of Ticka Ticka Taco, and he shared some awesome tips for getting selected for a food truck reality show. And as you know, he was runner-up on the Great Food Truck Race on the Food Network. And there's actually current casting going on for another new food truck show. It kind of sounds like a spin-off to me. It's going to be called Food Truck Face Off, and they're looking for 2-member teams that also have a signature dish, and preferably people, it sounds like, that are located in or around either Toronto, Miami, Austin. They're doing casting this week, and definitely if you live in those areas and you've always ever wanted to be on a reality TV show, check out the blog. I've linked up to the casting website, and before you submit your entry, check out last week's episode with Ticka Ticka Taco, because they'll provide you a lot of good tips. Having a great story was one of the pieces of advice that Michael really stressed on. So check out that link if you're interested in being in a reality show. And without further ado, let's dive into our featured course. All right, today I've got Scott Ross on the horn with me from Ross RV and Food Carts, based out of Portland, Oregon. I found out about Scott because he was one of the featured speakers at Rome Food Truck Conference earlier in the year, where he spoke about food trucks versus food carts, and I thought this would be the perfect type of content to bring to the podcast. So I reached out to Ross, and he was kind enough to jump on the phone call and speak with me. So thanks for being here, Ross.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, I know I've already provided a brief introduction about you, Ross, but I'd love for you to add a little bit of color to your background. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got involved in the food truck industry?
I've been working on RVs for almost 20 years now. I started out working on RVs, and then one of our suppliers, Curtis Trailer, here in Portland, Oregon, Rick down there, Rick Humphrey, he's always dealt with kind of the food cart people, as far as coming in and buying parts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was down there one day, and someone that owned the food cart needed someone to work on it. And Rick said he didn't have anybody or knew anybody that would work on it. which it really didn't make a difference to me. Food cart, RV, they're, a lot of stuff is the same. But that was about 9, almost 10 years ago I started doing that.
Okay.
Once I, started doing that, then I started getting into people wanting me to build carts, and then it's just gone from there. We're up to almost 70 carts already this year.
Wow. That's crazy. And are you building these from scratch? Or are you converting old food carts into new ones, or everything in between?
Everything in between. We just finished a school bus we turned into a food cart. Half of it is cooking. The front half of it's going to be seating. We took an old TriMet bus and we converted that. One of the little mini TriMet buses. We converted that into a place for a lady. A lot of cargo trailers. We do a lot of cargo trailer conversion. Take a blank shell inside of a cargo trailer and convert it into full-blown kitchen. Depends on how the customer wants it set up. We've actually even done some. We used to do a lot of stick-built wooden ones. We've kind of got away from those because they're so big and heavy. They're not designed to be moved around a lot. Once you get them done, you park them someplace and they sit. So this year we've done a couple smaller ones, 4x8. And then we did a 6x10 that we built out of a lighter, steel. We basically built our own cargo trailer, made them lighter weight. So for especially, like if you went to Saturday market or a street affair, the little 4x8s, you can tow them with a small car. You pull up there and open up business, and then you clip. Easy setup, easy tear down, and away you go, just for a couple-hour event type thing.
Now, Ross, I know you spoke at the recent Event Rome conference that we talked about earlier, and you talked about on the topic of food trucks versus food carts. And I was hoping we could dive into that a little bit. But first of all, could you just explain what's the difference between a food truck and a food cart in your own words?
Well, most of the food carts are designed, people pull them to a pod, and then they set them up and they leave them set up. The food trucks are a little bit more universal. It's easier to move them around from place to place. So you don't have to have something to tow the trailer all the time. You can drive to Intel, or you can drive to Nike or wherever you may be. Some of my trucks that we do stuff for got a little route. They just hit around businesses all day long, and they just, go out and then they park at night. So the food trucks are a little bit more mobile as far as if you're going to be moving a lot. The trailers are more designed to, be parked and, sit in one station for longer periods of time.
Do you typically recommend that someone always get a food truck or always get a food cart? Or is there certain times where, some entrepreneurs may need a food truck versus a food cart? Can you kind of help me understand what situation a food truck would work or what situation a food cart would work?
Well, a food truck would work better if you had multiple places to go to in a day. If you're going, like I said, if you're going from this business to this business to that business, a trailer is not really recommended for that because, you got to tow something, and longer, it takes up more space. It's easier to maneuver with a truck versus a trailer. If you're just going to be, say you went to the county fair or whatever, and you take your trailer there, you can drop it, and then you're sitting there for a week at a time. Or there's a lot of food pods around here, like parking lots full of carts and stuff. So they can, you're permanently parked there, you're permanently set up there. So the trailers work better for that setup versus a truck.
Okay. Expense-wise, is there typically a difference in expenses up front for someone investing in one of these? I would imagine that a food cart would probably be less since there's not an engine involved with it. A food cart is a lot cheaper, a lot easier to put together.
to build because you can get them in a little bit wider than a lot of the trucks. And as far as trying to get them equipped, trailer is a lot easier to equip because you have all underneath there. You don't to put water tanks, all that kind of stuff. It's a lot easier on a trailer. There's more labor involved, and the trucks, and then also the trucks usually cost more than the trailer does. My base price on like a trailer is like $4,500 versus a truck somewhere between $7,000 to $10,000 to start off with. So it just all depends on what your budget is too. I mean, you can find trucks out there that are cheaper, but you also get what you're buying too. You might have something that doesn't have good mechanical abilities. So I think you got to look at too in the truck is make sure you got the motor's good, the transmission's good, brakes are good, tires are good. With a trailer, you don't have all that stuff to worry about. And I think insurance is cheaper on a trailer than a truck too, because they tax you for the being mobile, being able to drive it.
Gotcha. So I know you said that you are building about 70 food carts this year. What's the most frequently asked question that you get about your food carts when a new entrepreneur comes in and starts wanting to know about the process? If we can customize it to them the way they want it. That's the most frequent question that they ask me. There's a lot of people, they want it, customized to them the way it flows best for them. And 90% of the time I can get it to the way the customer wants. There is some little quirk sometimes, like in the trucks, we have to make an exception for, or the carts, or the fender wells are a deal that we have to work around in some of them. But 90% of the time, that's, they ask us if we can, make it to the way they want it. So not just something just blank that, that's not going to, something that they don't have to settle for, something that they're happy with to work out of. So that's what we try to give these people is something that's going to work with, because once it leaves us, they're the ones that have to work in it all the time. We got to make sure it flows right for them. So.
And when someone new approaches you and they express interest in buying a food cart, what information should they have available?
Well, their budget. That's the main part of it. Another thing is what they plan on doing for cooking. What so I know what size of cooking equipment they need, so I can make get the hoods to fit, and what size the biggest pots and pans that they're going to use, so we can get the sinks to the right dimensions. We obviously not going to put a small sink in if they got these great big huge pots. We got to kind of balance so everything works for them the way they want. If they want shelving, where they want how they want to serve out of, if they want to serve out of the back end of the trailer or the back of the truck or the side. And, then we go over everything, what they want, if they want what type of material they want it built out of, like if they want all sheet metal or stainless steel throughout the truck, or FRP, diamond plate on the floors or vinyl flooring. We sit down and, help them plan it all out, and then we draw up a floor plan for them, and then so they can submit it to their health department. And also I need to know where they're going to be located at, so I can talk to the health department and find out if there's any things that they require different, because each health department has a little different requirements. So I check with, if I haven't dealt with that health department before, I'll check with them so I can make sure that, I get all the requirements that they want. So when the cart gets to them, they can, it's pretty easy for them just to have the inspection and then they open up and go.
No, that's great. Thank you for that very detailed explanation. Now, you're in a unique position, Ross, where you've worked with a lot of mobile food owners over the years that you've been in business. Some of these business owners have no doubt been successful, and others have no doubt failed too. In your opinion, what is it that separates those that wind up with a successful business from those that fail, from what you've observed?